the hometown boy will win, will probably be on that list. But they're forced, at least in the original rules, to pick someone from outside. So it's actually the second vote that they're more interested in. Then if you add all of these up, it probably means, since they can't even talk to each other, that they'll come up with a big list. So then you take the top 5, tapos ibabato sa Kamara. And then, yun, since they're all in Washington and they know all each other, they all know each other, they will actually pick the president. The interesting thing, as Ellis pointed out, was it actually didn't end up that way, even from the very start. First of all, because in the first 2 elections, Washington was so popular that there was no real fight. And then later on, nagkaroon na ng mga partido. At yung mga partido, sila na ang nangangampanya nationwide. So, kahit yung sistema na ginawa nila na siguro marami na lang pangalan ng lilitaw, hindi na kasi dalawa na yung partido, automatically limitado na. Which means they had to then amend their constitution because originally, number 1 becomes president, number 2 becomes vice president. Ay magkaaway na sila kasi may dalawa ka ng partido. So they changed it.
Manolo, we have another question from our text viewers. What states are going to decide the election this year? Why not national percentage na lang?
Okay, so Baby Voice on Pluric asked this. If you remember the chart that we showed you earlier, it's the big battleground states. It's the states with the big populations that often really matter. So you'll often hear California. Everyone looks which way California is going to go. New York. And then there are other swing states like Ohio and that sort of thing. There's actually a chart that we have here that we'd like to show you in a bit when it comes out. Because it can show you how, as the campaign goes on, everyone is weighing on the map. Okay, if you guys see this chart that we have on the screen, it's from votefromamerica.org. And you see there are actually 3 lines. One line is blue. Those are the electoral votes of Barack Obama based on the surveys of each state. So on each state, they're conducting a survey. Since it's winner take all, if Obama, let's say, is winning in California, okay, alam mo, Obama will get the California votes. So it's tracking the way the campaign has been going. The red is John McCain. That line in the middle is the number of votes you need to be president. So you can see that in the beginning of the campaign, kulelat si Obama in terms of the electoral votes and lamang si McCain. But then you see these vertical lines are important events in each of the, as the campaign went along. If you go to the more recent ones, you see the line, the part here where Obama suddenly takes off and McCain is suddenly diving. That's the economic crisis that's been happening in the news the past few weeks. So it's at that point that all of a sudden Obama takes off and McCain's crash diving. So this is the way the campaign is fought out. All the various campaigns, the McCain campaign is finding out, okay, we're losing in Ohio, we better pour resources there because may timbangan ka based on the electoral math. And that's the way they're fighting it out. Now, why isn't it done on percentages? Because, again, as Joseph Ellis was saying, the Americans still have a residual distrust of themselves, actually. They don't want a situation where it's just popularity that will determine everything, to the extent that that the individual states don't have their say. They like this system, complicated as it is, because it still preserves, somehow anyway, theoretically, the idea that every state matters in the equation. I don't know what you have to say.
Well, something I'm also suspecting the fact that, the Americans like statistics and numbers so much.
Yeah.
Like that's why the infatuation with baseball. And probably that's why they like this, the calculation of the electoral votes and what have you. But one thing I'd like to add is that it's not so detached or distant from the democratic principles that we know, because of the fact that, as you said, the number of electoral college people that will be part of that would actually be based on the percentage of the population.
Yes.
More or less synonymous with the number of people that you have in the House of Representatives anyway. So.
Yes, that's true. But of course, this is always a complaint that's happening. Just as I was on my way to the studio, I had to write this down on a piece of paper because they've actually proposed abolishing the Electoral College over and over again, and the most recent one to do it formally was Senator Dianne Feinstein, who's well known to Filipinos, particularly from those from San Francisco. Now, she pointed out that the U.S. Senate voted in 1979 to abolish the Electoral College. The problem was it wasn't a 2/3 majority, which is what you need to formally propose an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And 10 years before that, in 1969, the U.S. House of Representatives had voted. But again, the Senate at that point in 1969 didn't follow through. So it's come pretty close.
One thing I'd like to point out, especially to the viewers here, is that this is a complicated system, but for some reason, I think it really goes down to the actual citizens and the people who make up the government. Thomas Jefferson, in your clip earlier, was held with some suspicion because of the fact that he was a bit of an internationalist and what have you. And so, most likely, he will be the one that would say, you could say, to be going for the democratic type of form of government. But actually, he was a landed person. He really wanted to go for the electoral college type. Now, the guy who actually defended the electoral college type of system was Alexander Hamilton, who is in no way a landed figure. But you could see that
he was a self-made man.
Self-made man, came from one Caribbean country, island or something. But you can see that these people really rise above themselves from their petty insecurities and what have you, and they made the system work.
Okay, we have another
Manolo,
question.
Elena here is curious about the recent U.S. election or the current U.S. elections.
Di ba right now po, meron pong crisis sa US. And
economically.
Yes. Financially, di ba bagsak po sila. And si Bush po is a Republican. And he's presidency. And I mean, yung niya po, popularity niya as a president, bumagsak
sobrang bagsak.
po. Opo. Did that affect McCain's votes?
Yes, it did. If you went back to we don't have it on screen anymore, but if you looked at the chart, ang bawat kandidato, pinipili ng partido. Nagkakaroon sila ng a series of state-by-state elections where the different candidates run against each other. At kung sinong nananalo sa bawat partido, pinoproklama nila sa parang meeting de avance nila, which is the convention of each party. Nung nagkaroon ng convention, yung Republican Party, which is the ruling party, the one Bush belongs to and to which McCain belongs to, hindi nila pinapunta sa meeting de avance si Bush. Nag-TV appearance na lang siya because yun nga, he's unpopular and medyo tagilid yung popular. And if you noticed, Bush has not been going around the country campaigning for McCain. And in fact, McCain, kung pinapanood niyo yung mga debate, is always trying to prove, I'm not Bush, I'm different from him. Hindi ako magiging ganyan. So yes, there has been a big effect. Where it's less effective perhaps compared to the way we do things, for example, is hindi masyadong obvious yung paggamit ng government resources for their fellow candidates, although it does happen. Do you have anything else?
Well, actually, what's interesting is that it's correct, because everybody is trying to distance themselves from Bush, even McCain. But when you look at it, I mean, one gets a sense that when they get elected, whether it be McCain or Obama, they would probably most likely continue the Bush policies, whether it be in welfare, health, education, and even in national security for certain reasons. And that's an interesting thing.
Let me throw a question to you guys. Merong mga Pilipino na nagsasabi na dapat tanggalin sa inyo ang karapatan niyong bumoto na diretso para sa presidente at dapat humanap ng ibang paraan na pareho sa mga Amerikano na maghahanap na lang ng mga deputado na sila ang pipili ng presidente o kaya ang Kamara na lang ang pipili ng presidente. What do you think about this sort of thing?
Elena, do you have an answer to that?
Democratic country po tayo, so I think kailangan yung votes natin mag-count always.
But why do you think there are some Filipinos who want to form a more indirect form of picking the president or even abolish the presidency?
Or
Maybe
put
because-
qualifications.
Or
Maybe
increase,
because po, kasi diba ngayon po, medyo lacking na po ng integrity yung mga sinasabi ng mga politicians natin. They always give us the wrong notions about their credibility as politicians. Rin po.
But what makes me wonder about your statement is it's not only politicians who are making this proposal. Meron talaga mga Pilipino, sinasabi nila, tingnan mo yung mga pinipili ng mga tao. Tingnan mo yung mga nanalo noon. So, dapat humanap na lang tayo ng ibang sistema. Papayag ka ba sa ganun?